I'm going to do a few topical studies in the book of Proverbs, and I thought it might be interesting to show you how I gather the raw materials using Logos Bible software. One of the cool functions in Logos is their concordance tool. This allows you to generate a full listing of all the words in a translation that you're working with. So I've done this for the New King James Version. You can do it for any translation that you have in your Logos software. And once I've done that, I can sort it by a few different categories: word, lemma, root, sense, biblical entity, reference, or works cited. I'll show you a few of those in a moment, but this one is the default one. This is essentially all the words in the New King James Version of Proverbs, and I can sort by word, i.e. alphabetical, or by count, which is going to put them in the order of the most used to the least used. If I sort by count, I can browse down and look for common themes. Clearly, fool, the word occurs 63 times, must be a major theme. Wisely must be a major theme, etc. Yeah, for instance, we see that evil occurs 52 times, mouth occurs 52 times. And if I was interested in looking at mouth as a term, I can simply expand the list, and then I can browse through it and look at each of those verses in context. So that would give me a way of finding all the references to mouth in my translation that I'm working from. I can also use a different data filter. For instance, I can sort by sense. This links it to a particular sense in the Bible sense lexicon. So you may have different Hebrew words translated fool, but it's going to find all of them that use whatever word in the sense of fools or foolish, etc. So that's going to give me those, and again, of course, I can click to go and study them, open them on the other panel. I can even organize this material by lemma, which is Hebrew lemma, or root. Root is all the words that are translated a certain way. Yeah, for instance, I have lavav, which is the Hebrew word for heart. If I open it up, I find two different words that come from that root, and I could go and take a look. Now, if you look at this, you'll see this Hebrew word is translated heart sometimes. It's sometimes translated understanding, sometimes translated wisdom. So the same Hebrew root translated in different ways. If I were just looking by the English word, I wouldn't have found it. Okay, so multiple ways to segment that data. And so that's one very convenient way of studying a theme in Proverbs. Just go into a translation, generate a concordance for it, even go back to Word. What I need to do here is I only want the Bible text, otherwise it finds words in footnotes and stuff like that. Scroll down, browse around, find a theme that's interesting. Maybe I'm interested in father and fathers in Proverbs. And now I would go and read all those verses, and I would look for patterns or themes, and I would cluster them together, and in that way come up with the framework for a simple topical study of father in the book of Proverbs. Now, there's another way to do this. Logos software has a thing called the Proverbs Explorer. Let's close that for now, which is all the proverbs in the Bible that are tagged, and then one of the ways they have tagged them is by themes. Now, this is not limited to the book of Proverbs. As you'll see on the right-hand side, if I choose a theme like, say, poverty, I'll find proverbial or wisdom material that is in Deuteronomy, Job, etc. But most of the proverb material comes from the book of Proverbs. So let's say I was interested in studying the intersection between poverty and injustice. I can tick both of those, and then I'm going to get a filtered list of verses that link to both of those. Let's see what this verse says. Much food is in the fallow ground of the poor, so that's why it's tagged with poverty. And for lack of justice, there is waste. So you can see there's a reference to injustice and a reference to poverty, even though it's not the word poverty or the word injustice, but the idea has been tagged here as a theme. So this is another way. Let's say, for instance, we wanted to find the correlation between poverty and greed. I think I saw greed somewhere here. Let's go look through it. Grief, no. Anger, no. Do you see greed? Thought there was greed. So we've got poverty. Now we want greed. There it is. So 13 passages of proverbial material talk about poverty and greed. Let's go and pick one at random. I haven't done this in advance. So Proverbs 28 verse 8. One who increases his possessions by usury or extortion gathers it from him who will pity the poor. So there's no word greed here, but the concept of being greedy and exploiting the poor is present. So both of those filters help me to find that intersection. And that's essentially how I get the raw material for looking at a theme in the book of Proverbs. And then all I have to do is gather the verses I want to use, categorize them, organize them, and present it in a filtered and neat way. So maybe that's interesting and helpful. Software is really amazing. It allows one to do a lot of useful stuff for studying God's Word.